Electrocast.
Hold on to your butts.
We are changing the course of history as we see it. That is what Wesley demands.
Now this affects Iris. Iris, where are you?
What you feel only matters to you. I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
Iris, I have a tip for you.
Don't take drugs!
Or whatever movies with Wesley and Iris.
What up, and welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I'm your co-host, Iris, and I'm here with my older brother,
Wesley.
Today, we're talking a movie from 2024, Apple TV Plus original, The Instigators.
Ocean's Rejects.
You know how you always talk about patting George Clooney on the butt?
Yeah. Who are we patting on the butt? Matt Damon?
Casey Affleck.
Aw, poor Casey. He's a really good actor, an Oscar award-winning actor, I might add. And an Oscar-winning writer in Matt Damon, who's been nominated for an Oscar too. I'm a Casey Affleck fan for sure. And then he's writing movies now, I guess.
This is a family affair, The Instigators. I think even Matt Damon's wife executive produced this film.
She is the one, I guess she read it and was like, hey, you should do it. And so you're like, Matt Damon and Casey Affleck. That's interesting and different, except not, because this is like number 6 together.
Ocean's Rejects.
They were in all 3 Oceans together.
Casey Affleck too?
Yep.
Sorry, Casey Affleck. You were not memorable. How about Jason Bourne?
That's actually really good. Jason Bourne, which is the connection between Matt Damon and Doug Liman. Doug Liman, we discussed for Roadhouse and The Incredible Edge of Tomorrow, mine and Brian's personal favorite, one of them, and who is a big deal. He's going to space with Tom Cruise, which is the reason they haven't cracked Edge of Tomorrow 2. And then Matt Damon must have called in a favor or something. How do you get Doug Liman on The Instigators?
Money?
Is this money though? Well, yeah, Apple, obviously. They were the ones who would be like, hey, Martin Scorsese, you know that 4-hour movie about the murders for Killers of the Flower Moon? Here's $200 million that nobody else would give you. You wanted to make that Jimmy Hoffa movie? Here's like $150 million. Make it on Apple. And he's like, okay, so maybe that's the reason that Instigators came through on Apple TV.
I mean, is $150 million just a rounding error for iPhone sales?
Maybe, but also Apple iPhone sales, they don't break records every year. They're actually under projections.
Is this a bra movie?
It has to be. It's a Boston bra movie.
Boston, it's a Boston.
They have also talked about how different Boston is from the old days. Like it's a completely different city.
That seemed like a theme of this, though, that Boston was different, or Boston was, that Quincy, you're like this if you're from Quincy and yada, yada. Obviously, Boston is a character in a Casey Affleck movie, but it seemed to me like there was some commentary about politics and change in Boston.
Maybe this was a very straightforward, the town light comedy style caper heist movie that when they got there to film, they were like, it's nothing like it was, and everything is going to be mucked up as a result.
Oh, you think it was just a mistake that they had to then navigate?
Right. I think they were chasing, in a meta kind of way, I think they were chasing this kind of poorly conceived, all over the place story and trying to make up for it at every turn.
Wow, telegraphing much.
In a way, these two guys were the grown-up versions of their Ocean's characters. Linus, the Matt Damon character, wasn't great with a gun and was like he was a very clever, very quick-handed pickpocket, and that's his strength. But other than that, he was awkward and shy and reserved and kind of bumbling. And the Casey Affleck character, who was just a screw-up, is now a screw-up who blew all his money on booze.
Are you saying that Cobby was kind of a screw-up? Because Cobby was a confusing character for me because he's smart and capable and charming and brave and a great friend and a great brother. What was his flaw? Other than that, he was maybe a drunkard and a drunk driver.
Who was he brother to?
He was a brother to his brother, who he took the rap for.
Oh.
And then his brother OD'd while he was in the clink or the slammer or whatever cool thing people in Boston call it.
I think Cobby was a cool, smart guy who people expected things from, who just drank his life away. And I think that people didn't regard him seriously. Like the bar guy, like, I tried to help you, Cobby. God knows I tried to help you or whatever. And he's just a screw up getting yelled at by the neighbors and really wanted to make this thing happen so badly that he kind of just wanted to be a part of a thing. And the only guy who would be willing to do it with him was the Matt Damon character that he wanted for a friend, it feels like. It was pretty sad.
Interesting. I mean, I'll grant that he's self-destructive, but we don't like him because he's just wasted potential?
Maybe, but his romantic pursuits are just proximity based. Like Hong Chow.
Oh, no.
Hong Chow is all over the place. They would be like in the middle of a car chase or a situation, and he'd be like, "How you doing?" And she's like, "You're an idiot." He was intelligent, but he wasn't particularly clever or perceptive. There are lots of smart people with no direction.
He's not suave. There's no finesse to Cobby, but he's certainly smart. I mean, he is responsible, certainly, for getting them out of every jam that they get into. He gets them out of the house when Paul Walter Hauser is all up on. He gets them out of the building. I'm really not sure about the mechanics of the fire engine escape, but somehow they get out of that. And he gets them out of, he saves his life during the mayor's heist.
And look, so them getting out of situations and him being, fast talking and calling out all the weird things, like, his quippy stuff about him, like finding himself in therapy and stuff. And like, who are you really? Like all that kind of stuff. I think that's more Casey Affleck's writing and knowing that he wants his character to be clever and quick and witty, while also be bumbling and agreeing to this kind of elaborate scheme and plot and not being able to really get himself, and keeps getting shot. But he's smart. Like they reference a bunch of other heist movies and stuff. It felt self-aware in that way, but in a, what was it called? Perfect Animals or Super
American Animals?
Yeah, American Animals, right? That was a heist movie where they literally sat down and watched every other heist movie they could get their hands on, like their blockbuster rental history wouldn't be a part of evidence or something, They referenced Thomas Crown Affair in this movie, Butch Cassidy, I guess I got to go to Bolivia on my own. So he's knowledgeable and aware, and for some reason his haplessness just gets him in this impossibly terrible, dumb situation.
Our discussion for American Animals available at orwhatevermovies.com or wherever you get podcasts. Okay, so he's heist savvy. He's got some real life doing jobs experience. I was very unclear how well he knew, what's his face, the guy who looks like Robin Williams?
Yeah, the low rent Robin Williams, the gangster guy. Michael Stuhlbarg?
Yeah, Stuhlbarg. Yeah, so did he know Michael Stuhlbarg? Did Cobby and Matt Damon's Rory character know each other? I didn't get anything from that silent exchange where they walk into the building together, when they're being assembled for the job, and then Matt Damon gets a chair and positions it away from Casey Affleck. Like, what was that exchange supposed to tell us about their history? That they had none?
Yeah, I don't think they had a history. I think that they were pulled together for this job. He was the Marine guy. He's like his Linus character from Ocean's 11. He was very good at a thing. Doesn't mean that he's good at robbery or whatever. And Casey Affleck was the dude who knew how to, who on a different angle had a strength. And you put the dudes together like Reservoir Dogs based on their skill sets.
So they don't know each other, but they develop a friendship over the course of all of their shenanigans or whatever. And so did the gangsters, did Alfred Molina and company know them? Because they certainly have opinions about them.
I'm not sure. I think they were forced in a position where they were like, we got to have a heist. And we have all these, dude, Alfred Molina stopped by? I saw him at the cafe and was like, want to be in my movie? So now we have to come up with an Alfred Molina worthy part. And so he's going to be the other, not the main gangster. He's going to be the other gangster guy or whatever. And they were chasing the situation they put themselves in. I have no idea if it was important. If it was by omission of exposition, we are meant to fill in the backstory ourselves. And that either lets them off the hook, or the writing is so good that it sparks our imagination and we populate this world. It definitely seemed like an established world where people show up and you're like, oh my goodness, this has to be important because all this is happening for a reason, right?
Like Ving Rhames showing up.
Right?
He was rather Terminator-like in this, I thought, in his armored vehicle.
Yeah.
Did you also notice that this movie continues our summer of wacky car chases?
Yes, which Doug Liman is really good at. He's a very kinetic director. The car chases stood out in Edge of Tomorrow. The Bourne movies were a big thing. The fight sequences, right in the camera, very dangerous seeming stunts and car chases. But it was maybe a little bit out of place in this wacky faux heist caper thing.
It seemed like between the armored tank and the fire truck would have had a little bit more oomph and muscle.
Well, I mean, that's a lot to haul around, and it's unwieldy and not aerodynamic, but ditch the truck. Ditch all of the trucks that you guys got away in. It would have made your getaway so much easier.
Well, I don't think they had the presence of mind to ditch the fire truck, because when they were celebrating and chanting, "We are firemen," that was possibly one of the funniest moments of the movie.
That made you laugh.
It did. They were all stoked. At that point, I think I had, given in, and I thought it was pretty funny.
I don't know, man. This movie seems like it works on paper. And again, I'm still in my philosophical phase, but this persona is taking some knocks this week with the instigators. Why are they instigators?
Why is this called The Instigators?
Why is this called The Instigators? So here's what I've come up with. I've decided that either probably Casey Affleck, his kids are grown, if you can use that word, for 16 and 20 years old. But a nephew came over and was like, Uncle Casey, I have a movie for you. And he's like, oh yeah, what's that, bud? And he's like, so the guys, they're going to rob, and they go, and it's supposed to be empty, but there's a lot of people there, and it's the mayor, and there's no money, so he steals the mayor's bracelet. So the mayor hires a man and sends a tank after them, and the one robber is sad, and so when the other robber gets shot, they go to the doctor, so she helps them, and then they go to rob the mayor again, and then the robber falls in love with the doctor, and then they smooch, and yeah, and he's like, all right. So he doesn't want to hurt the kid's feelings, so that
was a pretty good impression of Aurelia, by the way.
And so he sat down and was like, I'm committed to this story. I'm now chasing it, and we're going to make the best version of it. It's like when have you ever seen the artists and kids draw monsters or superheroes, and then real artists sit down and create lavish, beautiful versions of those kid drawings and turn them into real superheroes? It's like Bumblebee Girl, and they draw this sleek Bumblebee character or whatever that looks like a Pokemon. Have you ever seen that?
No, but I've seen experienced dancers and choreographers mimic babies in Mommy and Me dance classes.
Or Ray Gun from the Olympics. Because I picked up on this stuff, and I was like, God, this is taking forever in the kitchen scene. There's no way that they would go through with this. They would just run out, and the kitchen staff would be like, who the hell is that? No, they insisted on robbing the entire kitchen staff and the mayor. They got away in the frickin' armored car, and I was like, there would never be a single armored car guard. Never. But that was the thing that the nephew told Casey Affleck. So he was like, okay, but the other one is in the back for some reason, and he's going to shoot at him, but he's going to miss with a shotgun. It's a spread weapon, and he missed with that shotgun. Whatever.
Could he not shoot through the door because it was an armored vehicle?
I have to assume so. But the car chase, they're at Hong Chao is there. All the cops pull up when she calls the cops, and there's no one guarding the back door. They get down and get in her car. And then it's like, oh, then they come down the alley after they're already in their car for the escape. Like, would Hong Chow, who's been taken hostage repeatedly at this point, be flak vested and helmeted and sent in as the hostage negotiator? And they're like,
A little
wait,
convenient.
she's going to take their side? What? It seems like they had a script, and for some reason, somebody had a gun to their head or a stuffed animal to their head, and they were like, well, we got to make it work. So let's try to make it work in the cleverest way possible, where all these twists and turns will account for them, but it's going to be a little bit thin.
Life is hard, but finding a really great podcast makes the days go by so much easier. Hi, my name is Blue Telusma. I'm a writer, an emotional intelligence coach, and the host of Humanize with Blue Telusma, a podcast where we believe that when you humanize everyone in the room, a great conversation is almost guaranteed. Join us every week here on Electricast as me and my guest co-hosts unpack big topics and interview even bigger personalities with a sense of humor and a dash of mischief. If you're looking for a new best friend in your head, we've got you covered. Electricast.
Well, it's a little bit like Casey Affleck and Matt Damon making a movie together. They kind of just do what they want.
Yeah, but this is an Oscar-winning screenwriter and an Oscar award-winning actor who you would think maybe they're just like, it's a Boston kid. Come on, let's go do it. And they're like, whatever. Because Ben Affleck's Boston stuff is it's harder to poke holes in that stuff.
The stuff that Ben Affleck writes or directs, but not necessarily the stuff that he acts in.
No.
I mean, you saw Hypnotic, right?
Yeah, but I also gave that a glowing review. My favorite ever Robert Rodriguez movie. They get out of elaborate situations where they're surrounded by cops twice by going out the back door in the apartment and in the bar.
In that car chase, when they're eluding the cops in the big car chase when Matt Damon is in Hong Chow's BMW, that felt like Matt Damon being like, I've done car chases. I got this. And like,
right? He's trained.
but was so indicative of like Matt Damon being like, I'll do an action movie, but like, he's complained publicly about how difficult it was to get in shape for Jason Bourne movies and how he'll never do it again because of the physical requirements. I think he was like, I will do this, but I don't want to get tired.
And Axel F. Think of the meta-ness in this movie of Casey Affleck saying, we're going to use the combination on the bracelet. We're going to go into the mayor's office where the mayor, for some reason, in the mayor's office has a giant walk-in safe. Like, that's not shady or whatever. And I get that he's corrupt or whatever, but he's like, they would never think that we're dumb enough to go back in there.
And then they do that dumb thing, which is enter the mayor's building dressed as firemen. It's
kind of a cheat. It's kind of like, this is dumb and we know it's dumb, which is why it's so clever. Whereas I'm like, that's kind of dumb. Like, really? Would they go in there?
But it is dumb.
Right? And then Choi, who wins the mayoral election.
Yes.
By this point, we've blown up half of Boston and we're like chasing and crashing and stuff all over the place. People have been shot. People have been killed. Yeah. And then they get to the mayor's office and the mayor finds out that he can keep all of this shady money if he doesn't prosecute these two dudes. So he lets them go, but under like national scrutiny at this point, just so they're just like, he's like, nah, get out of here. It's fine. Everybody is watching at this point. How do you just let him go?
Corruption runs deep, bro. It's like an addiction.
I'm saying, how does he account for, like, we talked to them and it seemed like they were in a bad situation, so we've released them from custody without prosecution and preserving their anonymity? Like, what do you say to people when it's like on the news and it's in the mayor's office?
I mean, you say that you're exercising your mayoral privilege of extending grace and pardoning these people who are really just too dumb to, have any benefit from serving time.
Yeah. Maybe you can have therapist and frequent kidnap victim Hong Chow testify to their character and their mental state as a therapist.
She just shows up in the courtroom. She's
right?
like, I'm witness. She's a negotiator. She's therapist. She's doctor. She's everything in this movie.
Lover. Why would she possibly let Gabby or whatever his name is in her house? Cobby.
Why would she let him in her house? She doesn't. They sit on the stoop.
Well, I'm saying, why would she entertain that discussion? She hated him. He almost got her killed.
I thought about this. She didn't hate him. It's like the kind of hate and teasing that is really just attention. And also, have you seen Casey Affleck's Baby Blues?
Sure. We get the light through his baby blues on a couple of occasions in this movie.
Yeah, he's a big cutie, so that part's not unrealistic. That's the part that's unrealistic for you?
No, there's a lot of parts. It seems like everybody showed up and they were like, okay, well, dude, Paul Walter Hauser called me and he wants to be in the movie or whatever. And they were like, okay, put him in the thing, but it's got to be that one contained scene. Well, how do we do that? Oh, let's blow him up with the recurring gas gag or whatever. It's like anytime Casey Affleck goes into a situation, he knows he's got to rupture the gas line just in case he needs a quick getaway or a convenient getaway.
Exactly. It made it less smart that he did it the second time.
Right?
But kind of fun.
And Paul Walter Hauser is just such an anomaly. He's well regarded, and Richard Jewell, unfortunately, he played a Paul Walter Hauser type in that, but everything else I've seen him in, from Cobra Kai, to Da 5 Bloods,
Blackbird.
He's so lame. And look, I want big dudes to succeed in movies, and I want them to be well regarded and everything. I don't see it.
He gives in awfully easy, the Paul Walter Hauser character, but I was happy to see him show up. I was happy to see a lot of people show up, although it did feel like Casey Affleck and his writing partner were chasing the actors that they just happened to have in their Rolodex. Did you also notice how they were like, hey, Ron Perlman's dying, let's put him in the movie?
Ron Perlman is dying?
I mean, doesn't he look like he's dying? Is that
Aww. No, he just looks like he's morphing into the Beast when he played Beauty and the Beast. Or he looks like a Hellboy now more than ever without the makeup. He's like the slowest human transformer. He's transforming into an animal. He just still has like a human flesh tone.
He's looking kind of misshapen, I have to be honest.
He's old, dude. He's like in his 70s. Everyone's old and bloated and in their 70s in this movie. Ving Rhames hasn't looked healthy in decades. Alfred Molina is just an older dude or whatever.
Yeah.
And yet Casey Affleck called Matt Damon, who's arguably the most fit person in this movie next to him, like 60 years old. I don't know, man.
Hong Chow is fit and trim.
She's definitely trim. She weighs 86 pounds. I wouldn't know that I would use fit. Do you know that this reunites Hong Chow and Matt Damon from Downsizing?
No.
She was the one who had the very strong, distinct Vietnamese, very criticized Vietnamese accent in that movie. And then, of course, The Whale and the new Yorgos Lanthimos movie or whatever. She's definitely around in a thing, but this reunites everybody in some way. And maybe without this world that Matt Damon and Casey Affleck have created for themselves and around themselves, maybe a movie like this wouldn't be possible. It's possible because it's personal and because it's accessible, and maybe they called in all the favors for this movie.
All right, well, kudos to them for working with people they enjoy. I feel like we've talked around this movie a lot. Can we actually get into the instigators, or are the mechanics of it not important?
Money like none of you shit bums ever seen. Dude, guys, we're talking 200,000 here.
Well, if that's chump change to you, then I don't know how you're a poor, starving podcaster.
And it's not about the money. It's Matt Damon's character is standing on principle. He needs exactly 38,000 something, 32,480.
Which, by the way, does he get it? Or does he take Cobby's advice and just go see his kid?
I don't recall. But how do we get into this movie is what I'm saying.
Did it work? Did you enjoy it? What's your philosophical take? My
philosophical take is I appreciated the cleverness of the ridiculous situation, where for legal reasons, he had to state, I will kill you if you do not do what I say. And thus she is a prisoner, a hostage, and has to do what he says and use her, ER experience to treat his gunshot wound. And he's inside the car being like, what is this conversation? Like, what is happening? That stuff was funny. The self-awareness, like I said, they all know they're in an absurd, ridiculous situation. And to this movie's credit, all the characters play that role of we have to go through with this for this reason, for their personal reasons, their characters' personal reasons. I found that all great. Hong Chow was very steady as her therapist character. She was calm and collected, did show, lapse of judgments here and there, but she's human. She's not a robot. Matt Damon was doing his thing for a specific amount of money, not a penny over. How about gas money? How about, something to take your kid to Applebee's or Norm's? Maybe just a little bit more money? I don't know. There's this weird principle thing where he has to help Cobby's character, but still is going to leave him when he gets shot, in the ballroom or whatever. It was fine. And then Cobby is just trying to have friends and trying to live up to his potential as an obviously clever guy who needs a break.
He does seem a little bit like he's passing the time, even in sticky situations.
Yeah, doesn't care that he's going to die, is like, ow, this hurts, but is not having like a crisis of what did he do with his life, anything like that. It was fine. And so I appreciated the cleverness. I like watching Doug Liman action scenes. I have to admit, I smiled when people would show up because I'm like, here comes Ving Rhames to save this movie. Here comes, well, not Paul Walter Hauser. Oh, Alfred Molina, this is going to be great. He's a baker, but he's definitely not going to play second fiddle. And then pretty consistently, he played second fiddle. It's like fourth fiddle. After the robbers, he's the heisters. He's the second fiddle to the gangster character, which is also just yelling in rooms and stuff and not doing anything terribly important.
Yeah, I thought that there was something to the gangster baker. I was really excited, but then he doesn't take action. He just gets his donut cases smashed in. Why did Ving Rhames smash his donut cases? Just to send a message?
Yeah, he wasn't cooperating. Ving Rhames was on behalf of the mayor, who is also corrupt. And that's how corrupt gangsters send messages.
They bang up the bakery?
Right? It's like going in the town and messing up the dude's flower shop. They have these little fronts or whatever.
All right.
So it was clever and fun to watch in that respect, in a movie that was so kind of comically dumb that I questioned how, for all the resources and all the, not one of those people who have some pull in the movie business would be like, all right, but let's change this obvious glaring flaw in the story and maybe it will make this a better movie. Everyone just kind of took the script at face value or whatever, maybe because Casey Affleck had written it and was starring and probably also producing. And who questions Doug Liman? I don't know, man. It seems like a little maybe passion project that kind of slipped past those safeguards.
Mm-hmm. And because that's the privilege of the elder statesman of Hollywood, who can get something like this made and call in favors and run into people at coffee shops and cast them. And make The Instigators, because it's good to work and not every movie's going to be perfect. And it's kind of fun. Speaking of IMDb featured user review, 6 stars, good to watch to pass some time.
Yeah, it was good to watch to pass the time, but it didn't really make an impact on me.
Well, what about for Caper fans? 7 stars, not for everyone. If you are a Caper fan, you will enjoy it.
So here is the rub for that. This movie is a Caper type movie where it doesn't go right. And maybe that is the draw. That these are the bumbling caperers or whatever, where the story is, it doesn't have to be all smart and tidy and satisfying. Maybe this is the real lives of bumbling caperers. Do people who love clever heist movies were like, whoa, you found the ins and outs and really stuck it to the man by pulling off this insane heist. These dudes weren't smart really for the purposes of heisting, really at all. Does that make it a good heist movie? I guess to some people. I hope so.
Well, at least to these 2 reviewers who said 7 stars, funny and well casted, and heist fun.
I take issue a little bit with the last part, but it was funny in parts and definitely good casting.
I might argue good cast. I don't know about good casting. Kind of a funky stew, kind of an all-over-the-place script, but it does not lack charm, which Matt Damon and Casey Affleck also deliver. I think this is a solid 6-star kind of movie, which technically gets us over the line.
Yeah, over the line maybe, but just barely, and it cannot be without some complaints and caveats. It seems like a first drafter with 1 or 2 halfway decent premises that they just kind of fleshed out and chased to the very bitter end.
It's true that one of the 15 producers probably could have reined this in, not including the executives at Apple, who are also culpable in their own way for The Instigators. But are you saying, is that an official all right?
Yeah, it's an official all right for an Apple heist movie starring this big talent or whatever. This movie wouldn't have made a splash in the box office. Apple doesn't, I don't think, nor has to release those numbers. But for a fledgling streaming company that's looking for content, they're definitely not above putting out a whole bunch of money for a product that's more or less effective at times. But look at the roster of Apple-made original films, and this doesn't seem far out of place. So I guess in that way, it's successful for them.
It's a little bit like Banker, or what was that Rashida Jones movie?
Yeah, On the Rocks, or Greyhound, or Killers of the Flower Moon, or
of our discussions, which are available at orwhatevermovies.com.
The Irishman,
or wherever you get podcasts. And that's our discussion on The Instigators. You got an official all right from Wes and a Jason Boring from Iris.
Wait. You said it was funny and clever and entertaining, and then you flipped the script. You said technically just above the line, and then you gave it a boring. Man.
I have existential crisis about our rating systems in general, so I'll flip the script again.
Oh, man. The first ever reversal in the middle of an episode.
I really don't have any problem with The Instigators. And that is my problem with The Instigators. It's so messy that it kind of makes me not care that it's messy.
Poster quote.
818-835-0473 or whatevermovies@gmail.com. Thanks for liking us, and we'll see you next time.
Hi, it's me, Flo. Remember me from Ghost Hampton, the podcast? I was secretly in love with Lyle Hall. Well, now I'm dead and loving it. But let's talk about you. If you loved listening to Ghost Hampton, you can now spend the summer in the Hamptons. The original episodes are back, and now new episodes will be dropping every Friday. I may drop in too, just to make Lyle feel guilty. Ghost Hampton, the podcast, is now streaming everywhere.
Electricast. Welcome to the Candle Power Hour. Come with us backstage behind the scenes of show business spanning over 4 decades and bringing you the experiences that can only be told by the people who were there.
Our guests are from the A-list, the F-list, and everyone in between. Get set for some of the most insane, hilarious, and inspiring stories you will ever hear.
I'm Mercury.
And I'm Diego.
Your host for the Candle Power Hour.